This mean-looking ant is truly unlike any other. Welcome to Bug of the Week Part 14, brought to you by Lil Dudes Insect Academy. If you're new here, consider subscribing, dropping a like as always, and maybe commenting your favorite fun fact from this episode. But, without further ado, let's just jump right into this. Consisting of many genuses with about 200 different species, this is the famous army ant. Army ants are native to the southern United States, but are more common in Central and South America, Africa, and some parts of Asia. Now, one of the many fascinating things about these ants is their incredible polymorphism, meaning there are many different forms of workers within a colony, all having different jobs. Ants, being social insects, live within a colony structure consisting of 1 to 3 queens and thousands of worker ants. And male ants do not really have a role within the colony other than to mate with queens to start new colonies. Now, because of this, all the workers are also female. They just don't possess the necessary organs to reproduce. And so this is where the polymorphism comes into play. Within the structure of an army ant colony are two main groups, soldiers and workers. In other ant species, they may be called majors, minors, super majors, etc. So first, the workers. The workers are quite small with very poor eyes and small mandibles. These workers mostly help carry things from point A to point B, scout for new nests, search for weak ant colonies to attack, and feed their young. Now, secondly, the soldiers. The soldiers are smaller in number, but significantly larger in size. They have larger heads, much larger mandibles, and work as the protectors of the colony, and they also help bear the heaviest loads. Now, like all ants, they are born as larvae, which the workers help rear in a dedicated nursery section of the colony. They then spin cocoons using silk when they then pupate into adults. Now, the kind of ant, queen, worker, soldier, or male, is chosen by the queen when she lays the egg. So when she lays the egg, she puts off pheromones, and it will tell the workers what kind of ant that egg will be one day. Now, what makes army ants extra special is that they are considered the greatest social hunter in the animal kingdom, meaning as a group, they are the biggest predator within their food chain. These colonies can even reach sizes of hundreds of thousands of workers strong, which means they need a substantial amount of food being collected every single day. So how do they do it? Army ants' food of choice is actually other ant colonies. Army ants will storm another innocent ant colony, eat all workers, brood, cocoons, queens, food stores, everything. That is how they have earned their name of army ant. As I mentioned previously, the army ant's eyesight is extremely poor, rendering them virtually blind. So how do they find their food so efficiently, and how do they keep their colony fed so well? Army ants have ultra-sensitive antennae, meaning they can detect smells and pheromones with immense accuracy. And what puts off a lot of pheromones? Other ant colonies. So luckily for the army ant, these colonies are quite easy to detect and track. Now, interestingly enough, there is one kind of ant who has developed a clever defense against the tactic by the army ant. Here's my friend Dr. Terry McGlynn, who I featured in my podcast earlier this year to tell you all about it.
I spent about 10 years working on this one species that would move its nests all the time. And so I was just doing a simple experiment, tracking colonies over time about something else, but the ants just kept disappearing. Like, I'd put a flag in the ground next to where the nest was, and I'd look at the ants, and I'd come back the next day, the hole in the ground was there, but the ants weren't there anymore. And it took me a little while to realize that they had just moved, but they moved next door like 2 feet. And then I go to that new nest where they moved to, and I wait another week or two, and they move to a different location. And I soon discovered that all of these ants, all throughout this one rainforest, were moving their nests on average about every 1 or 2 weeks. to a different place. And I was trying to figure out how and why. It's a very weird thing. And to make the really long story short, my best guess to the about what's going on, and I do have some evidence to suggest this is what's happening, is that they move their nests so they don't get attacked by army ants. So in this forest where I work, army ants are a common predator. Almost all army ants, what they eat are other ants. That is what army ants eat. They specialize on ants, right? And so it's kind of funny. People think, what is the greatest enemy to ants? And the answer is, well, they're just other ants, right?
Yeah.
And so these army ants are blind. They can't see. They might sense light, but they don't see images because their eyes aren't built for that. Yeah. And so while people think of ants as being oriented towards odor, this is even more true for army ants because they're effectively blind. Yeah. And so army ant colonies could be, tens or hundreds of thousands of ants roaming through the soil or on top of the forest floor, blindly following together, spending a different place every night, eating what's in their path. And so it is presumable that when they find their prey, they detect them by smell. Yeah. And so army ants attack other ant colonies and mostly eat their brood. They eat the baby ants, the larvae and the pupae. Yeah. And so they don't usually kill the whole colony. They just sort of rob the babies, because also those are more delicious for them to eat anyway and easier for them to carry off, right? And so what I found really interesting is army ants would go through my research site all the time, but they very rarely would ever enter these holes that my ants lived in, the Aphaenogaster aeronoides. And so what they would do is the hole in the ground is about the size of, I don't know, a nickel or a quarter, something like that. It's actually a big, compared to ant nest entrances, it's a rather big really hole. Large. Yeah. So you can actually take a flashlight and look inside and you'll see ants hanging out in there. So it's really weird that it's a large nest entrance, but that's what it is. And so the army ants, there'd be a column of army ants going straight past the nest entrance, but no one would go inside. And so they rarely ever got attacked. And so, but once in a while, I would see them attack a colony, but not frequently. And then because I was tracking these colonies and when they were moving from nest to nest, I noticed that the colonies that they attacked were the ones that had been in the ground for a longer period of time. They were probably just ready to move and they haven't yet. So let's say they move on average like once every week or two. Then these are ones that were just ready to move, but then army ants got to them. Right. But if a colony had freshly moved into a new hole, then the army ants didn't move in. And so what I was thinking is that the army ants smell the odor of the ants coming from the hole.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what makes them attack it. Mm. And so if they keep changing nests every week, then that nest does not accumulate odor.
Right.
Right. And so this somehow would mean that if you're in the nest longer, it's more smelly. And so it turns out that if I could experimentally add odor to a nest, and that would actually make the ants want to occupy it for a shorter period of time. But if I were to actually ventilate a nest to sort of remove more odors, then they'd actually occupy it more quickly.
So to summarize, this colony of ants was observed to rotate nests every few days so that the natural pheromones put off by the colony would not build up too much, making them undetectable by the army ants. With that, I hope you all enjoyed this episode learning about army ants. They're super bizarre. I've seen them in the wild. They are really a work of wonder. Like, it's crazy, the things that they do, the things they can carry and move and construct using their workers and their soldiers. Their soldiers are huge compared to their workers. The differences in them are crazy. Like, a worker can stand on top of a soldier and the soldier can carry them around. It's super cool. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, leave a like and comment something that you enjoyed. There's also a playlist with all the other Bug of the Week episodes if you'd like to check those out as well. And with that, I will see you all next week, and keep on bugging.